I'm a king of rock, there is none higher. Sucker MCs should call me sire. To birth my kingdom, you must choose fire. I won't stop rocking till I retire.
Now we rock the party and come correct. All sets are on time and rhyme connect. Got the right to vote and to elect. Another rapper can't stand it, but give us respect. I wanna rock.
Into this house we're born, into this world we're thrown, like a dog without a bone, an actor out alone, riders on the storm.
And the music was good and the music was loud.
Oh, Lord, yeah.
Whoa! It's Monday. It's Cyberspace Cadet, Cyber Fam, Fanbots galore, Cyber Comrades. We're going to try to uncomrade you. Right. And what you got here is a case of extra credit with BECCA FERHLE'S. Spectre of Communism Part 3. What's up, BECCA?
What's up?
What's up, man? Seems like I was just talking to you like the other day.
Yeah. Imagine that. It's been less than 24 hours.
Yeah, that was fun last night, though. I had a ball. She cut me loose, y'all. It was interesting.
I appreciate you coming on last night.
How about
it
I
was
embarrass
fun.
you, man?
Oh, no. Hard to embarrass.
God forbid. But, yeah, so it's Monday. How's your Monday been?
Lazy. It's Columbus Day. Are we still calling it Columbus Day?
I am. Yeah. I'm all about that Western civilization and, manifest destiny and all that shit.
Me too.
You know what I'm saying?
Good place to be.
Merca. Fuck yeah.
Merca.
I love this. I love my country, man. I'm just, like I say, this show is just a reflection of the way that I was brought up to love this country and to hate fucking communism and communists. Okay?
Correct.
It ain't the people, it's the government, y'all. And just like our government sucks, theirs is worse. Just saying. Just cranking it up for everybody. So all right. So we're on part. Actually, we're on part 2 of part 3, or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah. So this is going to talk about. I'm a little conflicted as to whether I should make this 18 and older. There's no graphic visual violence, but there's a lot of talk about it. I think we're okay because this is educational. And I watched an educational video of a woman shaving her vagina on YouTube the other night. Just saying. So, I mean, it was out there, man, and it was like, oh my God, what is
YouTube can be an amazing place to be.
To get lost and to go, oh my God, What is this? Holy shit! Oh my God! All right, so we're now in the video room with the clouds of smoke or whatever that is around us. All right, so all right, somebody was talking about Beethoven's Fifth. You might hear it. I've got a little classical musical playing in the background with the Star Trek thing. So, and on this note right now, I'm going to shut up and we're going to watch some of this thing. So, and then we'll stop it from time to time and make comments and things. We'll do a wrap up, and then I've got a little cartoon I want to show. It's about a little 10-minute cartoon about are you a commie or are you a citizen? So you're going to take the test, and if you pass, you can stay. All right, so here we go. You ready?
Ready.
Buckle up, Beck. Here we are.
2. The slaughter of the working class. From Marx's theories to the rhetoric of the totalitarian communist regimes, all were filled with the principle of reliance on the proletarian workers and peasants, and promises to represent their interests. But in practice, it was the working class that suffered the greatest abuses under the communist system. A. Suppressing the Soviet workers and peasants. In 1918, after Lenin illegally disbanded the Constituent Assembly, it was the workers who were the first to resist the communist dictatorship. Protesting the dissolution of the assembly, tens of thousands of workers from Petrograd and Moscow held parades and demonstrations. Bolshevik soldiers cracked down on the unrest with lethal force, gunning down demonstrators and filling the streets of Petrograd and Moscow with the workers' blood. The country's largest labor union, the All-Russian Union of Railwaymen, announced a strike to protest the Bolshevik coup and gained the broad support of many other labor organizations. As it did with the workers of Petrograd and Moscow, the Communist Party of the Soviet Union put down the strikers with its armed forces, and the All-Russian Union and other independent unions were banned. Remaining labor organizations were gradually forced under the control of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. In the spring of 1919, starving workers in cities across Russia went on strike several times to demand the same rations as Red Army soldiers, the rights to free speech and democratic elections, and the abolition of political privileges afforded to the communists. All these movements were handled by the Cheka secret police, who jailed or shot the strikers. In the summer of 1918, Russia faced a massive food shortage due to the ongoing civil war. In June, with the country on the verge of famine, Lenin dispatched Joseph Stalin to Tsaritsyn to seize grain from the Volga Basin, traditionally a breadbasket of Russian agriculture. The tyranny of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union invited resistance from the peasants. In August 1918, peasants in the Penza region rose up in an armed revolt, and the uprising quickly spread to the surrounding areas. The Communist Party of the Soviet Union sent troops to suppress the uprisings, and Lenin sent a telegram to the Penza Bolsheviks. Here is British historian Robert Service's translation of the original Russian telegram. Hang, and make sure the hanging takes place in full view of the people. No fewer than 100 known landlords, rich men, bloodsuckers. Publish their names. Seize all their grain from them. Designate hostages in accordance with yesterday's telegram. Do it in such a fashion that for hundreds of kilometers around, the people might see, tremble, know, shout. Before the October Revolution, Tambov was one of the richest provinces in Russia. In order to seize its grain, the Soviet Union organized many, quote, grain requisitioning teams and sent them to the region. Over 50,000 Tambov farmers formed local militias to fight the Communist Party of the Soviet Union's requisitioning teams. In June 1921, faced with the task of suppressing the Tambov rebellion, the Soviet regime suggested that military commander Mikhail Tukhachevsky fight the hooligans with poison gas. Tukhachevsky's use of chemical weapons, combined with fires that burned across the region, rendered much of Tambov completely desolate. An estimated 100,000 Tambov peasants who took part in the resistance and their relatives were imprisoned or exiled. Around 15,000 people died in the insurgency. The widespread slaughter in the Soviet Union served as a comprehensive model for the Chinese Communist Party's coming persecution of the Chinese workers and peasants. B. Following the Soviet model. China has a broad and profound culture with a history of 5,000 years. Its people are steeped in a tradition of worshiping gods and revering the divine. The Spectre of Communism, incapable of conquering 5,000 years of tradition using conspiracy alone, dealt with traditional Chinese culture using systematic violence. The Chinese Communist Party targeted the elites of society who served as the bearers of traditional culture, destroyed the physical artifacts of Chinese civilization, and severed the connections between the Chinese people and their gods. China's traditional heritage was replaced with a party culture to be spread among the survivors of the CCP's mass killings, turning the young into treacherous wolf cubs who serve as the Spectre's pawns in the continued destruction of humanity. Immediately after taking power, the CCP began to invent enemies, beginning with the murder of elites. In the countryside, it slaughtered landlords and gentry. In the cities, it killed businessmen, creating an atmosphere of terror and looting the wealth of civil society. To rouse the peasants to kill landlords and rich farmers and support the new communist regime, the CCP implemented a so-called land reform that promised the peasantry their own land. But after murdering the landowners, the CCP claimed the land was to be turned over to the peasants in the form of cooperatives. In practice, this meant the land still did not belong to the peasants. In March 1950, the CCP issued the Directive on the Strict Suppression of Counter-Revolutionary Elements, also known as the Campaign to Suppress Counter-Revolutionaries, which focused on killing the landlords and rich peasants in the countryside. The CCP announced that by the end of 1952, more than 2.4 million counter-revolutionaries had been eliminated. In fact, more than 5 million people, accounting for nearly 1% of the total Chinese population, had been murdered. After killing the landlords and rich peasants in the countryside, the CCP launched the 3 anti and 5 anti campaigns to slaughter wealthy city dwellers. In Shanghai alone, 876 people committed suicide during the movement from January to April 1951, according to incomplete statistics. Among them, many capitalists committed suicide with all of their family members. The CCP did not stop with the extermination of landlords and capitalists. It also robbed the wealth of peasants, small merchants, and craftsmen. After the mass slaughter, the vast majority of the working class remained impoverished. Three, the absolute brutality of the Communist Party. A. Atrocities of Soviet communism. The gulags, inspiration for Hitler's death camps. On September 5, 1918, Lenin ordered the establishment of the first Soviet concentration camp on the Solovetsky Islands for the incarceration, torture, and slaughter of political prisoners and dissidents who opposed the October Revolution. The Communist Party of the Soviet Union followed this up with a constellation of concentration camps across the Soviet Union, the notorious Gulag labor camps of the Stalinist era. The Gulag system, the term Gulag being an abbreviation in Russian for the main administration of corrective labor camps and settlements, grew to a monstrous scale under the leadership of Stalin, as the Communist Party of the Soviet Union intensified its political terror and carried out even greater purges. By the time of Stalin's death in 1953, there were 170 Gulag administrations containing over 30,000 individual camps scattered across the Soviet Union, in what Alexander Solzhenitsyn would famously describe as the Gulag Archipelago in his book by the same name. In his documentary work, Solzhenitsyn listed 31 different methods that the Soviet secret police used to exhaust their prisoners' strength and force them to confess to any crime. Those sent to the Gulag suffered from a constant shortage of food and clothing while being forced to perform heavy labor 12 to 16 hours a day in the freezing cold of Russian winters. The death toll was enormous. Many people were imprisoned along with their entire families, with husbands incarcerated and wives exiled. Not even the elderly, some already in their 80s, were spared. The condemned ranged from high-ranking party elites, state leaders, and military commanders, down to completely ordinary citizens from every walk of life, including religious believers, engineers, technicians, doctors, students, professors, factory workers, and peasants. It is common for people to believe that concentration camps were a Nazi creation, but in reality, the Soviet Gulag system was the precursor to similar forms of repression around the world, in both communist and non-communist regimes. According to former Soviet military intelligence officer and popular historian Viktor Suvorov, before World War II, Hitler sent Gestapo officers to Russia to tour and study the experiences accumulated by the Soviets in building the Gulag. According to conservative estimates, over 500,000 prisoners perished in the Gulag system between 1930 and 1940, during the years of Stalin's pre-war terror. The system was disbanded in 1960. In 2013, a website of the Russian state media reported that more than 15 million people had been sentenced and imprisoned in the Gulag labor camps, and more than 1.5 million had died.
That's a sobering number there, don't you think?
I think so.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine 15 million, and 1.5 of those.
Well, you know, it's like, and I've never read the Solzhenitsyn books, and I really need to do that because All right, so here's the reason he ended up in the Gulag. He fought for Russia during World War II and was captured, and then went to a German camp, right? And when he got out, when the war was over, they said because he was captured, he was programmed by the Nazis, even though he wasn't.
Yeah.
And they said because of that, you got to go, because and they sent a lot of people that were POWs, Russian POWs, to the gulags. It was out of the frying pan into the fire.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It is crazy.
I want to see something. Is the music better? A little bit louder? I'm going to make it just a wee bit louder. All right. So we're going to keep rolling, y'all. The famine is... all right, so we're going to talk about the Holodomor, right?
Okay.
Killing by famine. Communist regimes often killed people through famine. Between 1932 and 1933, the Ukrainian region suffered from a genocidal mass starvation, known as the Holodomor, caused by the Soviet regime. After the Civil War, the Communist Party of the Soviet Union's forced collective farming met with widespread resistance from the Ukrainian peasantry. To deal with this, the Soviet regime classified a majority of skilled farmers as kulaks and exiled them to Western Siberia and the republics of Central Asia. The removal of the kulaks was a huge loss to Ukrainian agriculture, and in 1932, production plummeted. In the winter of 1932 to 1933, the Soviet government cut off food supplies to Ukraine and set up security fences along the borders of the republic. At first, Ukrainians survived on the stored vegetables and potatoes in their homes, but these were soon requisitioned by party authorities. A large number of farmers starved to death. In desperation, people turned to eating the dug-up carcasses of cats, dogs, and livestock, and even cannibalism. The authorities prevented villagers from traveling to the cities in search of food. Many people starved to death as they walked along the railways. The Holodomor famine turned more than 1 million Ukrainian children into orphans. Many of them became homeless and had no choice but to beg for food in the cities. To eliminate this embarrassment, Stalin signed orders authorizing police to shoot children as young as 12. Estimates of the death toll during the Holodomor range from about 2.5 million to 4.8 million. During the famine, bodies of the victims could be seen all over the streets of Kharkov, the Ukrainian capital. The Great Terror turns on...
Hold on one second. Yeah, I want to say there's kind of be a consistent theme emerging here with communism. So the kulaks, I know a little bit more about them. They were like farmers that could feed their own families with their farm, usually. Okay, and a lot of them were killed. They were expected. The Russians, when the Ukraine became part of the Soviet system. The Russians just came in and said, okay, we need your grain and shit. We're going to need your farm because you're like, it's our shit. It's our shit now. It's not yours. And it's like, but I own this place. Nope, boom, gun, and you're dead. And the starvation was, there's a couple of movies out there on it. And I'm thinking about, and there's a couple of other like 30-minute deals. And we'll get more into depth with that, because some of the details are just fucking will make the hair on your neck stand up. It's it's like I love horror films, but not this kind.
Me either.
You know what I'm saying? Because it shows you how horrible people can really fucking be at each other. It's just it's insane. All right, keep rolling. Sorry.
Streets of Kharkov, the Ukrainian capital. The Great Terror turns on the Soviet elite. The purpose of the communist Spectre is to destroy all of mankind, including, eventually, its own followers. This played out during the Stalinist era, as the Communist Party of the Soviet Union carried out bloody purges across its own ranks. Beginning in 1928, Stalin targeted the upper echelons of the communist leadership. Out of the 1,966 delegates to the 17th Congress of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union in 1934, 1,108 were arrested on charges of counter-revolutionary activity. Of the 139 members of the Central Committee elected at the 17th Congress, 4 out of every 5 were shot. The Soviet Politburo had elected 31 members between 1919 and 1935, of whom 20 were killed in Stalin's purges. Lavrentiy Beria, Stalin's secret police chief, once said, "Show me the man, and I'll find you the crime." Except for Stalin, all of the Politburo members remaining at the time of Lenin's death in 1924, Lev Kamenev, Grigory Zinoviev, Alexei Rykov, Mikhail Tomsky, and Leon Trotsky, were executed or assassinated by 1940. No section of society was spared in the Great Terror. Repression in the religious, scientific, educational, academic, and artistic fields preceded the purges that gutted the military and political elite. The main victims of Stalin's terror were ordinary Soviet citizens. How many were arrested, killed, imprisoned, or exiled by Stalin in the Great Terror? Even today, there are no complete records or answers. On the eve of the dissolution of the Soviet Union in June 1991, KGB chief Vladimir Kryuchkov said that between 1920 and 1953, about 4.2 million people were, quote, suppressed, including 2 million during the Great Terror alone. Alexander Yakovlev, a reformist politician in the Soviet and Yeltsin eras, said in a 2000 interview that the victims of the Stalinist repression numbered at least 20 million.
Wow. That's just, it blows my mind when 20 million people just,
To me, that's like saying $20 million. I don't think I've ever seen it all in one place. So it's hard to imagine it. But when they show photos and stuff, it blows my mind.
Yeah, stacks and stacks of dead bodies.
Yes.
What was it? Stalin was the guy that said 100 people killed is a tragedy, but 1 million people killed is a statistic. He was stupid. He was really a fucking idiot. They called him Tsaritsov, the little nickname there. That was a dig. It means little czar, because he was short. He was a smaller stature than you would think, he literally killed all the generals. So, like, when Hitler invaded him, nobody knew really how to command shit. I mean, they literally had to throw their army together over a 4-year period before they got to where they were, able to put up a significant resistance, like at Stalingrad and things like that. Because these guys had to emerge organically, because all of the brain power was killed because he was paranoid.
Yeah.
And a 20 million count. I mean, it's like, if you think about what the Nazis did, the atrocities of that, and wait till we get into China. Jesus. Yeah. And that's on the plate. Exactly. That's on the plate for today is death. So grab a fork and join us.
B. Atrocities of the Chinese Communist Party. From 1949, the year the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, regime was established, to 1966, tens of millions of Chinese lost their lives in the campaign to suppress counter-revolutionaries, the 3 anti- and 5 anti-campaigns, the anti-rightist campaign, and the Great Famine caused by the Great Leap Forward. This period was followed by bloody struggles within the CCP. As a new generation of Chinese, raised to be atheist wolf cubs, indoctrinated in the education and party culture of communism, came of age, the communist Spectre launched a campaign of even more rampant killing and destruction to wipe out 5,000 years worth of traditional Chinese culture. The Great Chinese Famine. Between 1959 and 1962, China experienced the world's deadliest famine. To deceive the world, the CCP still claims it was, quote, 3 years of natural disasters. In fact, in 1958, the CCP had rashly begun the People's Commune movement and the Great Leap Forward campaign. These wild schemes, which depleted grain stocks and decimated Chinese agricultural production, were supported by a deluge of false reports written by officials across all levels of leadership, from rural regions to the cities. The CCP used these reports as justification for collecting grain from the peasants, who were forced to turn in their food, seeds, and animal feed to the regime. The CCP's administrative organs at all levels sent teams to the countryside. They used torture and interrogations to squeeze the last morsels of food from the doomed peasants. Following the example set by the Soviet communists, the CCP prevented villagers from entering cities in search of food, causing the mass death of families and even whole villages. Cannibalism was widespread, and the corpses of famine victims littered the countryside. When peasants were caught stealing to survive, they were killed. The grain seized by the government was traded for large amounts of Soviet weaponry, or for gold that the CCP used to pay off debts, as it turned a blind eye to the loss of Chinese lives. In just 3 years, the Great Chinese Famine had wiped out tens of millions of people. The Cultural Revolution's fanatical slaughter and cultural genocide. On May 16, 1996, the CCP published the Notice of the Central Committee of the Chinese Communist Party, which marked the beginning of the Cultural Revolution. In August, with the children of high-ranking CCP cadres leading the way, students from secondary schools in Beijing formed a band of Red Guards. The mob went on a rampage across Beijing in a frenzy of ransacking, assault, and killing. By the end of
All right, he said 1996, but it's 1966. And he did that earlier too, I noticed. So it was in the 60s where they had the Great Leap Forward, and then and then this point, the cultural thing was right after it. So just to keep things straight. If you're taking notes,
the month known as Red August, thousands of people in Beijing had been murdered. In the Beijing district of Daxing, 325 people were killed in 6 days, between August 27th and September 1st, across 48 production brigades of 13 people's communes. The dead varied in age from just 38 days to 80 years, and 22 families were wiped out completely. The Red Guards beat their victims with clubs, as well as stabbed or strangled them. They killed infants and toddlers by stepping on one leg and tearing the child in two. As the Spectre of Communism directed people to beat and kill,
Yikes.
It erased their human compassion, brainwashing them with the slogan of, quote, treating the enemy with the numb cruelty of the harsh winter. With every crime against humanity, the CCP displaced the traditional culture and moral virtue of the Chinese. Poisoned by party culture, many people became tools of murder. When most people see or learn about the bloodthirsty deeds of the totalitarian communist state, they are at a complete loss as to how anyone could descend into such inhuman barbarism. The truth behind this is that they were possessed by rotten demons and degenerate spirits controlled by the communist specter.
Oh yeah. The Marxist ideology that drives these people. They're driving the people, behind BLM and Antifa. Make no mistake, there is a monetary connection between the CCP and BLM and Antifa, and I've got a thing about that we'll be talking about on the Cream Stream Friday night. So, yeah.
I'm looking forward to that.
Well, it's like I knew there was some way that, or it was going to come out that was the truth, because they got to have their hand in it. They got to.
Yeah.
Because they're literally trying to take over the world right now, and I think a lot of people don't realize that's what's going on. And I do sound paranoid, and I think this is a healthy paranoia.
I think so too.
You know, I'd rather. It's like it's the devil, you know, because the devil we know is that these motherfuckers, communism has murdered more people than any other type of government that's ever existed. Okay, just the systemic murder of their own people. And you can get into, you know, arguments about people starving in capitalist society and stuff, but there is a middle class that can thrive in this capitalist system. So, and on that note, I'm going to mute and keep rolling.
Estimating the ravages of the Cultural Revolution is a daunting task. Most studies suggest a minimum death toll of 2 million. R.J. Rummel, an American professor who has researched mass killing, wrote in his book China's Bloody Century that the Cultural Revolution claimed the lives of 7.73 million people. Dong Baoshun, an associate professor of China's Shandong University, and Ding Longjia, deputy director of the Shandong Party History Research Office, co-authored a 1997 book titled Exonerate the Innocent, Rehabilitate the Wrongly Accused and Sentenced. It quoted Ye Jianying, the vice president of the CCP Central Committee, as making the following statements during the closing ceremony of the Central Working Conference on December 13, 1978. Quote, 2 years and 7 months of comprehensive investigation by the Central Committee have determined that 20 million people died in the Cultural Revolution. Over 100 million suffered political persecution, and 800 billion yuan were wasted. According to the selected works of Deng Xiaoping from August 21st to 23rd, 1980, CCP leader Deng Xiaoping gave 2 interviews with Italian journalist Oriana Fallaci in the Great Hall of the People. Fallaci asked, quote, "How many people died in the Cultural Revolution?" Deng replied, quote, "How many people really died in the Cultural Revolution? The figure is astronomical and can never be estimated." Deng described a typical case. Kang Sheng, the head of the CCP's secret police, accused the party secretary of Yunnan province, Zhao Jianmin, of treason and of being an agent of the Kuomintang. Not only was Zhao imprisoned, but his downfall also impacted 1.38 million people throughout the province, of whom 17,000 were persecuted to death and 60,000 were beaten to the point of disability.
Because because the guy was responsible for all those people, he had them killed. Because he figured, well, I guess they're in his court, so, you know, fuck them.
Again?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll pause it again. I'm sorry. You know, it was like he had the people that the guy was responsible for, he had them killed too. Because, like, fuck them, I guess. There was no logic there to that murder. Of all those people.
It's all paranoia.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what happened with Stalin. It got a little bit better, but still Khrushchev was pretty paranoid. But anyway, I'm sorry about that. We'll keep rolling.
Unprecedented evil. The persecution of Falun Gong. Decades of murderous violence and atheist indoctrination by the Chinese Communist Party have taken a massive toll on the moral fabric of society, bringing it far below the standards gods require of humanity. Even many of those who still believe in gods are ignorant of genuine faith, since they are trapped in the sham religious organizations controlled by the CCP. Should the situation continue to degenerate, humanity will face certain extinction, as prophesied in the holy texts of every ancient civilization. During the spring of 1992, to restore human morality and provide a path to salvation, Mr. Li Hongzhi taught Falun Gong, also called Falun Dafa, a spiritual practice based on belief in the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. Uncomplicated to learn, Falun Gong spread across China in a few short years. As practitioners, along with their relatives and peers, experienced miracles of improved health and character, tens of millions of people took up the practice in China and around the world. With so many people practicing cultivation in Falun Gong and holding themselves to higher standards, society began to rediscover its moral bearings. But the specter of communism is bent on preventing man from being saved by the Creator. For this reason, it destroyed traditional cultures and corrupted human moral values. Naturally, it sees Falun Gong as its greatest adversary. In July 1999, then CCP leader Jiang Zemin unilaterally ordered the systematic persecution of Falun Gong and its practitioners. In a brutal campaign that covered every corner of China, the CCP applied every method imaginable in its efforts to fulfill Jiang's directive. Quote, kill them physically, bankrupt them financially, and ruin their reputations. Party mouthpieces subjected the Chinese people to constant propaganda filled with hatred and slander of Falun Gong, rejecting its principles of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance in favor of falsehood, wickedness, and struggle. The evil specter brought society to new lows in moral degeneration. In an atmosphere of hatred and repression reactivated from dormancy, the Chinese people turned a blind eye to the persecution happening around them, betraying Buddhas and gods. Some sacrificed their conscience and participated in the campaign against Falun Gong, ignorant of the fact that they had damned themselves in the process. The communist specter did not limit the persecution to China. It silenced the nations of the free world, while the Chinese regime engaged in the frenzied jailing, murder, and torture of Falun Gong practitioners. Essentially bribed with economic incentives, the free world took in the party's lies.
Yeah, for everyone.
I'm muted now. All right. I'm muted to you. I'm muted to them. It's like, but yeah. So this thing's been going on for quite a while. You know, it's not only Clinton, but you know, everybody's been playing footsie. We've been playing footsie with China as a country, you know, ever since Nixon, right? And favored nation status, all that shit. I think it was a huge mistake. The idea was to give them, to encourage them with enough capitalism to where, at some point, the people are going to say, "Look, I want my share too." Right, and then Tiananmen Square happened, and instead of the government, you know, caving to the people, they fucking killed everybody in Tiananmen Square. So they squashed that, but you know, even today, with the WHO has now come out and said that high schools and grade schools are no longer super spreader places, and they said that shutting down may be a bad idea today.
I saw that.
And you know, and the WHO is definitely, you know, in China is an extension of the CCP. So if they're saying do that, man, I don't know. I'm just saying. But we can't trust the Communist Party of China. You know, if they can't keep their own fucking people safe, they won't keep their own people safe. You know, these people, the Falun Gong are like, you know, it's kind of like the I don't know how to describe it. It's a peaceful religion. I really haven't gotten into it real deep. Tim knows a little bit more about it than I do. But traditional, what you call Chinese medicine, acupuncture, things like that, are you know, come from this religion. So, and. Yeah, you want them chicken tendies? Let's say hi to some people while we're looking at it. I got memes of the destruction. Everything's going on, dude. Moonbase Security, greetings. Terry Diamantis, sir, greetings. Uzi Q, buddy. She's my pal. She's my forever friend. Let's see, Dark Star. Hey, man, Dingleberry Pie. I'm not going to have a slice tonight. I'll decline, but thank you anyway.
I'll pass.
Right? Kenneth Fairley, Mr. BECCA.
Mr. BECCA. I like that.
I'm sure you do. I know how to play this game, dude. Uzi and I got 27 years coming up at the end of this month. So, and the secret phrase is, the secret phrase is, you're absolutely right. I don't know what I was thinking. Just remember that phrase, Kenneth. You'll be fine, man. Some long, happy wife, long life, right? Happy wife, happy life, whatever. I thought I saw, who else did I see up here, man? Goat Man, of course. We've been blessed by the goat. You know it's a good day. Anyway, so, and to bring up, we're going to go ahead and bring up the rear and then go with the cartoon. But yeah, the Falun Gong is the last part of it, because that the people that put this together are this religion, okay? And so this kind of centers and touches on their, the fact that they were persecuted. By the Communist Party, and they were kicked out, and so a lot of them live in Taiwan, and a lot of them, live in the U.S., and that's where NTD comes from. And if you're not subscribed to NTD, I recommend it highly, because they're putting together actual fucking news. Okay, I forgot what it was until I started watching them in Sky News Australia. So on that note, I'm going to shut up.
Giving the persecutors free rein to commit the worst crimes. In the persecution of Falun Gong, the CCP introduced an evil never before seen: live organ harvesting. As the largest group of people imprisoned for their faith in China, Falun Gong practitioners are killed on demand, cut open on the operating tables of state and military hospitals, and their organs are sold for tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars.
They're doing this to the Uyghurs too.
On July 7th, 2006, Canadian lawyers David Matas and David Kilgore, former Canadian Secretary of State Asia-Pacific, published a report titled Bloody Harvest: The Killing of Falun Gong for Their Organs. Examining 18 types of evidence, they shed light on the CCP's monstrosity, calling it, quote, a disgusting form of evil new to this planet. Matas and Kilgore, working with international investigators, published the report, an update to the slaughter and bloody harvest, in June 2016. Running over 680 pages and containing more than 2,400 references, it proved beyond any doubt the reality and scale of the live organ harvesting carried out by the Chinese Communist regime. On June 13, 2016, the U.S. House of Representatives unanimously passed Resolution 343, demanding the CCP bring an immediate end to the forced organ harvesting of Falun Gong practitioners and other prisoners of conscience. The lucrative organ transplant business sustained support for the persecution of Falun Gong and attracted clients from China and around the world, making them part of the CCP's mass murder. 4. Red Terror in Export. The introduction to the Black Book of Communism provides a rough estimate of the death tolls of communist regimes around the world. It verified a figure of 94 million, including the following: 20 million in the Soviet Union, 65 million in China, 1 million in Vietnam, 2 million in North Korea, 2 million in Cambodia, 1 million in Eastern Europe, 150,000 in Latin America, mainly Cuba, 1.7 million in Ethiopia, 1.5 million in Afghanistan, 10,000 due to, quote, the international communist movement and communist parties not in power. Apart from Russia and China, lesser communist regimes have shown themselves no less willing to engage in absolute evil. The Cambodian genocide is the most extreme mass murder carried out by a communist government. According to various estimates, the number of Cambodians killed by Pol Pot's Khmer Rouge regime ranges from 1.4 million to 2.2 million,
Jesus.
up to one-third of Cambodia's population at the time. Between 1948 and 1987, the North Korean communists killed more than 1 million of their own people through forced labor, executions, and internment in concentration camps. In the 1990s, famine killed between 240,000 and 420,000 people. In total, 600,000 to 800,000 North Koreans are thought to have died unnatural deaths between 1993 and 2008.
I want to pause for a second and thank Mr. Goatman for that $5 donation. It was an honor to chat with you yesterday, all right? Back at you, brother. We need to do that more, actually, all right? So we're almost at the end of today's thing. I just wanted to make sure I said, hey, to Goatman, thank you, because I screwed up with Hannibal last week. And I still feel bad about that. So on that note, we're just going to finish this out, okay?
Okay.
After Kim Jong-un came to power, he committed more overt murders, with the victims including high-ranking officials and his own relatives. Kim has also threatened the world with nuclear war. In just 1 century, since the rise of the first communist regime in Russia, the evil spectre of communism has murdered more people in the nations under its rule than the combined death toll of both world wars. The history of communism is a history of murder, and every page is written in the blood of its victims.
All right, and on that note is the end of this thing. Next week we'll be getting into exportation of communism through the Communist Chinese Communist Party, the CCP. So we'll look at how they're trying to influence countries other than their own out in the world. And I'm sure there's some American stuff going on in there, because I hinted at it earlier, people.
Yep.
Just pay attention. Okay, and now we're gonna watch this really fun thing. This kind of takes me back. It's really before I think I was born even, but this little this deal will go next. And uh-oh. There we go.
Love it.
Make mine freedom.
America is many things to many people. To a 17-year-old kid, it's the malt shop on the corner. To Grandpa, it's the front porch in the cool of the evening. To Mother and her family, it's church on Sunday morning. And to Dad, it's his favorite relaxation. It's the Cracker Barrel philosophers in Crabtree Corners. And it's the tycoons in Wall Street. It's all races, creeds, and religions.
I was
It's
going to say
freedom
that
to
this is
work at the
painfully
job you
white,
like.
but now
Freedom of
they
speech
got very
and to peaceably assemble. Freedom to own property. Security from unlawful search or seizure.
What's your warrant, Flatfoot?
The right to a speedy and public trial. Protection against cruel punishments and excessive fines. The right to vote. And to worship God in your own way. It is these freedoms that have made America strong.
Okay, so we got our freedom. But management's lousing up everything.
Labor is at fault. It's ruining the country.
My constituents, as your elected representative, I can assure you Labor's right, management's right. I'm strictly neutral.
Labor, management, politicians, fooey.
Of the musical Little Abner. I know this because I was in that musical, and the guy with the bottle, his name is supposed to be Eagle Eye Fleagle. But I thought that just hit me, man. It's fucking awesome.
Bigger crops, lower costs.
Get your bottle of ism over here.
The weather perfect every day. And now then, because we are introducing this amazing item for the first time in this country, it isn't going to cost you 1 cent. All you have to do is sign this little scrap of paper, and you get your bottle absolutely free.
I hereby turn over to ISM Incorporated everything I have, including my freedom and the freedom of my children and my children's children, in return for which said ISM promises to take care of me forever.
I was here first. You paid 2 bucks. Get out of the way.
Pardon me. Pardon me.
And who are you, my good man?
I'm John Q. Public.
Ah, my fine friend, you're just in time to share this generous and gigantic offer. Sign right here.
Mind if I read it first?
Hurry up now here.
I was here first.
Keep your shirts on, boys.
Including my freedom.
Our smart man will read it.
Well, sign away my freedom. Why, this is ridiculous.
Don't be corny, brother.
Sure, our system of free enterprise isn't perfect. But before we throw it away for some imported double talk, let's turn the clock back a few years to see what it's done for us. For example, back in the 1890s, Joe Dokes was just a guy who liked to tinker around his barn. Some people thought Joe was lazy. Some even thought he was nuts. But one day, he had an idea. And because he was free to dream his dream and tinker, Joe had a chance to make something of himself and his idea. So, of course, some people didn't think so much of Joe's idea. But that didn't stop him. So Joe got some money from young Aunt Minnie and Uncle Angus and Grandpappy and Mr. Titus. When Joe's friends and relatives used their savings to help him buy tools and property, they were capitalists. Don't blush, folks. It's nothing to be ashamed of. Now, naturally, Joe needed some help. So he hired Willie Lumpkin, who was out of work anyway, and before long, Willie had the know-how and became skilled labor. Because capital, management, and labor worked together, Joe's idea grew. It grew and did things even he never dreamed of. Today, the automobile industry provides millions of jobs that never existed before. And remember, this is a story of only one industry. There are thousands more scattered all over the United States whose history of development is pretty much the same. We've built a country under the American system that sends more young people to high school and college than all the rest of the world combined. Why, even in the Depression, our wages bought more food, clothing, travel, and entertainment than the wages of any other people in the world. Our country has a national income equal to the total national incomes of any other 6 nations in the world. With only 7% of the Earth's people, we drive 70% of the world's automobiles. That's just a sample of the things the capitalistic system has given us in only 160 years. Before signing up, you boys ought to try a little taste of Dr. Ism's formula to see what you'd get in exchange for your freedom. Go ahead, try it.
You can't do this to me! I'll strike!
The state forbids strikes.
Wait till the union hears about this!
Ah, yes, the union. Welcome to our ranks, number 1313.
I'll take this case to the Supreme Court.
The state is the Supreme Court. Our decision is as follows. No more private property. No more you.
The farm vote will put a stop to this.
Farmers don't vote anymore.
What'll they do for seed next year?
You won't have to worry about next year. The state will do your planning from now on.
We must fight to regain our freedom.
Here's something for everybody to think about, okay? All right, if we live in a system like this, where the government makes all our decisions, can you imagine? All right, I don't know about you, but I've been to the Social Security building downtown where I live, and some of the stupidest motherfucking people I've ever met in my life work there. There's some great people there too.
Yeah.
But think about that. Think about these people making decisions on your life.
The DMV, the post office.
Anybody.
I've been to the VA. Holy hell, the VA.
Yeah.
Hate going there.
And they've improved that in the past couple of years. So
yeah, they have.
And it's sad,
still
man.
horrible.
It's still, exactly, it is. It is. All right, let's finish this out. Just getting more gratitude for what we got, people.
Everything is lost. Everything.
Everything is fine. Everything is fine. Everything is fine. Everything is fine. Everything is fine.
When anybody preaches disunity, tries to pit one of us against the other through class warfare, race hatred, or religious intolerance, you know that person seeks to rob us of our freedom and destroy our very lives.
And we know what to do about it.
And now, gentlemen, no violence, please. And don't throw those bottles. Don't throw those bottles.
Throw the bottles.
Throw the bottles. Skedaddle.
Working together to produce an ever greater abundance of material and spiritual values for all. That is the secret of American prosperity.
That's a perfect place to end it right there, I think, people. Let's go
I
ahead
love
and-
the classics.
I know, it's really good, and I'm glad you turned me on to that. That was Becca's pick, y'all, and it was a winner, indeed.
Thank you.
Makes me grateful for what I got and who I got it with and where I got it.
Same.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
I hope everybody that can hear my voice is living in a free life. You know, no matter what your fucking politics are, or what your religion is, or what color your skin is, all that. You know, I like the way they said that, man. Anything that tries to divide us has got some kind of sinister motive in mind.
Yeah.
Even if it's just, even if it's just financial, which it is for a lot of these fucktards. So, anyway.
Oh yeah.
Like I said, next week we'll be looking at the extension of the communist tentacles around the world. What about you, Becca? What do you got coming up this week? What's tomorrow?
Tomorrow and Thursday morning, 11 a.m. Central, I do Fairly Just Becca. It will be me by myself. And then Saturday at 6 p.m. Central, I will have special guest Blind Press on with me. And Sunday, I'm just going to start doing like a random, I guess, a couple of guest slots. Just have a couple people join me on Sundays and we just talk about stuff that I find and goof off.
Sounds like a plan to me, y'all. Friday night, of course, we got Cream Stream 147. I'm already putting stuff together for that, like I said earlier. Saturday, We're trying to get this dude on last week's Aiden Paladin was awesome Saturday. If you didn't catch that, go to my channel and watch the last episode of Accelerated Deconstruction. It was fantastic, and she really you really can flesh out this stuff because she understands how to read statistics correctly, you know. And it's just, so that was a good show. But somebody has challenged a duel, or or as we like to call, you know, up here in America, we like to call them debates. So the channel, the show's been challenged to a debate, and I think Attila the Hun is going to step up and do that. So I'll keep y'all apprised about that. And Sunday I'll be talking to Aircraft Sparky. So y'all come by. We're gonna hang out with the dude. Teaches kids for a living. I don't know why he does that. He's a better man than me, obviously. And on that note, everybody, big hug, and let's say goodbye. And Becca, we're out of here.
Later, y'all.